Welcome, everyone, to this Buckinghamshire Business First Talking Heads podcast. I'm Philippa Batting, the CEO of Buckinghamshire Business First, and today we're going to share some reflections on the budget that took place last Wednesday. I have the real pleasure of sharing today's podcast with Liza Rowles from Seymour Taylor, who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to this conversation, and we're thrilled to have her join us. So, shall we start by introducing you to the listeners, Liza? And I realised straight away that I mispronounced your name in the introduction. So Liza, tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and a bit about Seymour Taylor.
Hi, Philippa. Not to worry on the name. My name is Liza. I am a client director at Seymour Taylor Accountants based in High Wycombe. We're right in the centre of High Wycombe. I also head up our business tax department here, and I've been with the firm now for almost 20 years, so I've seen a few changes over that time. I think the main point we want to try and obviously get across today is obviously in relation to the budget and some of the news which came out. Some of it we knew about in advance, some of it was changes on the day, and obviously hopefully we can help our clients and the wider BBF community as well.
That's great. So we had a fantastic AGM and business showcase over at Garsington Studios, and it was a really good opportunity just to ask the businesses in the room. There was about 200 businesses there about their first impressions of the budget and the impact that they thought it might have on them. And it was really interesting that about 51% of them said they were slightly less confident. As we'd expect, about a quarter of them not really sure yet because it was too soon. And 22% actually, a lot more confident or slightly more confident. So that was a useful barometer yesterday, and who knows how they'll feel after a couple of weeks of delving into it. And the main challenges that they felt they're sort of experiencing at the moment is this managing rising costs and uncertainty, which of course the budget may add to those, and access to finance and funding. The budget tells us something about allocations to the British Business Bank. So it was really interesting to hear how they felt right after the budget. So shall we get into the detail then in terms of who do we think the winners and losers of Wednesday's budget are?
That's a tricky one. I mean, I think going back to what you were saying on how people are feeling in the immediate aftermath of it, one of the good bits which will be helping with the winners element of this is that a lot of the dates and the announcements that were made actually go further into the future than just the next tax year. So I think that really helps with that confidence side of things for a lot of businesses. They can sit there and they can say, okay, well, we know what's going to happen in 2028, 2029, 2030, even in the furthest dates out. So that really helps with people having a better feel and able to do any sort of projections and forecasting going forwards. I think in terms of the real winners that we're looking at, I think we're looking a lot at the sort of the leisure hospitality industry, or looking at they've won, as it were, from the budget. But at the same time, they've also lost, and I think that's definitely the feel from our reading and the research that we've come across on it. Because you win on the one hand, but you lose on the other, perhaps because the national insurance thresholds are being frozen again, and so we're increasing costs there. The minimum national wages are going up, which is great for individuals, but it's not so good for the businesses. So there's a real tough love almost on some of these where it's good for one half but it's not good for the other half. But having that knowledge as to what's going to happen over the next couple of years is really going to help a lot of businesses do some planning, which is definitely good for businesses.
Yeah.
We've been in a bit of a stalemate position, I would say, probably for the last 6 months, and people not knowing what to do. It's been so much speculation that it's been really difficult for businesses to plan.
So do you want to go into some of the specifics in terms of um, what were the points that will benefit business?
So, benefits to business, so aside from knowing what's going to happen for the next couple of years, so we know the national insurance and income tax thresholds are all being frozen now. It's been extended out to 2030, 31 tax year. There is some additional allowances are being brought in for businesses on capital allowances. So this is a really good one. So we have for businesses that do a lot of additions of, they're investing in property, machinery, desk space, where everybody's trying to get back into physical buildings. There is a lot of reliefs which are already out there, but a lot of them are targeted at certain industries. The new reliefs which have come in and are coming in strangely from the 1st of January, they're not aligned to a tax year. It's from the 1st of January is one of the big changes which is coming in. And that's a 40% first year relief, which is primarily aimed at businesses which lease out goods. So it's for the leasing industry because they get very little tax relief at the moment on any of the additions that they have. They can get almost no tax relief on it for in the first year or two. So that's a really big one that's coming in. The writing down allowances are dropping down in April. So again, it's that up from one hand and down on the other. That's kind of the flow that we're in on a lot of these bits and bobs. There is a lot of investment going in on electric vehicles, certainly on the charging side of things. Again, that's really good for the businesses that are putting in the charge points and the general infrastructure around it. We know that there has been a big push on electric and hybrid vehicles. And there is a lot more initiatives now in place to assist with putting the charging points in place in various locations, because there are some locations, town centres have them a lot more than the wider community. So there is a lot of incentives on those. Then there are also the downsides on those as well, and I'm sure that's one of the it was definitely one of the things that people were half expecting but half not expecting, which is this new rate which is coming in on the paper use on the roads for hybrids and electric vehicles,
Mm.
Which for an average used electric vehicle is going to cost about £360 to £400 a year additional for those people who have electric vehicles, which is a big number in the economy that we're in at the moment, and the push that there's been for electric vehicles. Some people feel it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And in Buckinghamshire, we have a huge number of SMEs. So I think we've got less than 1% big corporates, and the rest are SMEs. Do you think these changes? How do you think these changes will affect SMEs compared to the larger corporates?
Most of the changes are aiming more at SMEs. I think the budgets that we've had historically, so certainly the one in August-ish time last year, was aimed more at an individual level. This one has been aimed more at corporate level. So they're trying to put some stability and some frameworks in place for the future. And the idea on it is to try and get people into work. I think that's what everybody's kind of reading into it. Obviously, I don't know, but that's everybody's thoughts on it. So they're having a lot of initiatives in terms of trying to get younger people into work and apprenticeships, and that's where there's a big driver, and that's where the SME world can definitely benefit as well from trying to get that younger generation in and focus on, say, the apprenticeships, the NVQs, that kind of work. I did it myself many years ago. They are invaluable, and they are a great route into work for a lot of people. And the quicker you get people into work, the quicker they're into the system, and
Yeah,
that makes the world turn.
it does. All those taxation revenues going into the exchequer.
Indeed.
Yeah, we can't live without it. So, do you think property-heavy businesses are going to be hit hard with this budget?
Properties were definitely hit. Yes. So they were the properties have been hit a few times over the last decade, quite frankly. So it's sort of split between obviously companies owning residential and individuals owning their own residential properties, and then obviously companies with their own corporate offices as well. In terms of the residential side, there's a lot of additional taxes which are coming in on that side. And they've been in place. Some of them have been in place for a while. Some are new ones. From the SME focused side of things and actually looking at the properties themselves, there hasn't been a huge amount of movement on those in terms of what's going through. There's additional reliefs are being worked on in relation to the utilities sides of physically running office space. We're in a bit of a weird world where a lot of businesses are trying to get people back into the building after having had years of working from home and then hybrid world. Everybody's now trying to get back in. And we know that there is a lot of investment starting to happen with businesses physically just trying to get people bums on seats, as it were, back in the buildings.
So, what practical steps do you think businesses can now take to mitigate risks or seize opportunities, in fact, from the budget? Are there any quick wins, do you think, for them to take advantage of?
Yeah, there's a few bits out there because the fact that a lot of these dates are future dated and they're not just coming in from April next year. That absolutely gives opportunities for businesses and the business owners and everybody involved with the business to manage their affairs in the best way possible. So we know that there are changes coming in terms of salary sacrifice on pensions, but they're not coming in for quite a few years. So there is plenty of time for people to work these things through and do proper tax planning in the meantime. Similarly with the changes which are coming in on ISAs, they're coming in from April 27. So it's still, even that one isn't next year. I know it's a huge talking point for a lot of people. And a lot of people had feared that the actual total ISA allowance each year would drop down to £12,000. That ended up being a split of 12 and 8. But a lot of people thought it would completely drop down. But it's planning. That's where the big pick comes in from. Things like the capital allowances that are available now for businesses. If you're thinking of buying something next week, you might be better off to delay it until January or April next year, depending on what it is you're buying and what rates and reliefs you might be available to you. There's a lot of areas where you can just plan for it better, and that's something that's been very definitely missing from the economy recently and businesses that I talk to over the last 6 months. Everybody's been in but we'll just wait. Let's just wait and see what happens in the budget. Now, hopefully, people can actually get some stability and some future planning. And the OBR themselves have said they're only going to reassess once a year as well, which I think will help with the economy. So they're not, again, continually fighting and feeding this urge to reassess everything all the time. But yes, it's planning and getting these things done at the right time and in the right place. Because we have got the scope now. I couldn't tell you the number of clients who have been in touch and said, can we get a meeting scheduled in for next week, Q1 next year, before we get to the end of the tax year, to make sure that we've got everything topped and tailed and planned and in the right place. We don't want clients or anybody, if they don't have to, paying an additional 2% in taxes in April, that if they'd have just been organised or planned something in advance, they could have paid 2% less on it 3 weeks earlier. It's just it's some of it is simple planning in many ways, but it's just having the plans and knowing in advance. That's a huge confidence to people.
Yeah, and that's a really strong point to bring out in terms of, businesses just need to take stock and think about the planning, perhaps take in, expert advice, because this is a dense document, or 230 pages of it. And, we always talk about the importance of planning. If you're planning for growth, it'll, you'll get there. But there are an awful lot of investment decisions that need to be made along the way. And actually, in light of the changes in the budget, what is the best way to achieve what you're aiming at? So I think, having that expert advice there to support, that it's a very, very difficult arena to navigate on your own without expert advice. In terms of the return on investment for taking expert advice, where would you sit on that? If you're an SME operating in Buckinghamshire, there are some challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, what would you say to them in terms of the planning stages now?
I think it's one of those that you've got to, every individual business owner, shareholder, director has got to weigh up their own risk reward on everything, because sometimes you can get yourself into a planning cycle where you plan forever and you never actually do anything. And that's a massive risky area. So it's a case of making sure you have reasonable risks, normal business risks, I'm not talking tax evasion or anything like that, normal business risks, and making an informed decision. But you can't make decisions if you don't know what the risks or potential rewards are. Like I say, it goes back to, like I said, things like a simple dividend. If I was advising somebody and they didn't need the money and there was no benefit to them personally to taking the money out in March or April, well, let's not be silly on some of these things. Let's make sure we do it at the right time with the right rates, because it's just unnecessary. Obviously, it means they might have a tax bill which is a year earlier than they planned, but it's going to be 2% less than it could have been as well. So it's like cash flow, tax liability. It's always a balancing act. It's making sure you've got the right balance for you, yourself, your business at that moment in time.
Yeah. And I think there should always be the acknowledgement that, nobody knows everything, and it's the unknown unknowns, isn't it? And pulling somebody alongside that can help fill in the gaps of your knowledge is hugely, hugely advantageous. So I can't believe how quickly time has gone on this podcast today. But as we come towards the end of today's podcast, whether you're a startup founder, an established business, or just a curious individual, hopefully you've found some insights in today's episode that have been useful. No doubt we're going to be poring over the devil of the detail of this budget for weeks and months to come. And, what I would say is look out for some of the communications that we'll be sending out. We'll continue to work on the impact of the budget. Remember to subscribe, share and engage with us on social media using hashtag BBF Talking Heads. Thank you everyone for listening, and bye for now.